What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of my HLTV Fantasy. Today we are looking at EPL Season 15 Group D. It's safe to say groups haven't really gone as I would have expected so far. Movistar going 4-0, didn't expect that. Fury and Ends, didn't expect that. G2 not making it, didn't expect that. Things like this were pretty unpredictable. We'll have to see if Group D is going to deliver the same way. So probably just who I think will make it. I think Navi should make it. I mean, they are ranked 1 still. I mean, just the individual skill should be so much higher than some of these other players. Of course, look, they could struggle a bit more than usual, partially because of the situation in Ukraine. But yeah, I still think they'll make it through without too much of a hassle. Heroic, I think, should almost be the favorites going into this one. I think they almost always do really well in these early stages where they kind of just destroy all the weaker opposition. They've gone like 5-0 several times, I think, in EPL groups now. I'll actually check that out. Have they actually gone? Like, is my memory good? Copy this so I can check later, but they went 5-0 last time. Did they go 5-0 in season 13 as well, or am I wrong? Yeah, they went 5-0 for 2 seasons in a row now. Like, let's see. I just think, I mean, it should also be pretty much the same lineup. So I'd be surprised if they don't go like at least 4-1. They could lose to Navi, but I think Heroic should be the safest of all the bets in this one. With the rest, there's actually some competition, like Astralis. This is going to be their first lineup with Vardu. They should be the favorites. Like, they should still beat teams like EG and Ago way too easily. Complexity should also be a win for them. I wouldn't be too surprised if Col or EG make it through. I would be very surprised if Ago do. But if Complexity or EG make it through instead of Astralis, I wouldn't be too surprised. Just disappointed in Astralis. But I think Astralis should still be the favorites. What does that mean about fantasy? So I've been kind of looking at the prices, and the harsh truth is that these Navi players are just very expensive. Like Bit and Electronic at 226. Boomage and Perfecto usually don't get the highest of stats. That's just an unfortunate truth. They usually don't do that well in fantasy. Like Perfecto's had an event or two where he was actually good. But yeah. And with Heroic, the player prices as always are pretty even across the board. Staven has actually gotten slightly higher, or quite a good amount higher in rating, because he's had some insane events. He's found a really nice amount of consistency in his play, which is great. With the rest, oh yeah, I guess I could point this out. So Argo, there's a couple of players you could actually pick from Argo in Furlan and Milwaukee, because both of them actually. So this was like Grosshog, who is super weak in terms of stats player, and this was I think it's Krasnal is the player, and these guys came in instead of them. So their stats are at least a fair amount better. For example, Furlan for 160 grand with this rating isn't like the worst deal if you want to go for some of the more expensive players. Just throw in a Furlan. I'm probably not going for that, just because Argo have actually been not very impressive, let's say, for a fairly long while now. But yeah, the cheap player I might consider, if I want, there's a couple cheap players I could consider. Zipex, because he's like the best cheap player out of like a top team, I guess. If you want to call Astralis a top team right now, Zipex is like the cheapest of them, but he's really had no great events for a while now. I'd be surprised if he all of a sudden got like super high stats. Grim is like maybe worth a shout, but he's also not really, even since like leaving Liquid. He's had like okay stats. This doesn't really count, of course, but these are not like insane for him. Maybe expectations were probably a bit higher from Cole for Grim. Grim, maybe not, but like Rush is actually a pretty decent shout. He did for his role very well at Blast, even though EG didn't do too well. Rush actually seems to be punching above his weight, like actually doing very well. And this price is very cheap for him. Instead of someone like Breeze who just really didn't do anything, although the expectations are way higher for Breezy individually. Yeah, I want to point that out. Stewie could still be a decent shout for this price. I would not pick Zerg. I mean, problem is he's just like, for way too long, he's not done anything remarkable. Like, under 1.0 rating in the freaking RMR qualifier. It's not good enough. So there's some of the cheap players I would at least consider. Because of Navi's prices, I find it hard to even possibly pick them. Like, is there a world where so this is an option, I guess. Could go for something like this. I wouldn't be too... I don't think it's too bad to do this. Another thing I was thinking of is going double Astralis. It's a bit more risky. This actually also uses money perfectly. Thing is, config, if Astralis do well, config usually does well. I really like the idea of Rush. I don't know why. I think it should work out pretty well. Even if EG don't make it. I could also go, like, this is like what I would, if I wanted to go for the most basic lineup of them all, this is what I would do. I also like, I guess I should explain this. Why don't I go with Shush? I just think like the difference between Shush and Tessus in terms of stats is like very low. If you look at recent events, Tessus was really good in their latest win in Pinnacle. Shush was good, but not like as insane. In Katowice, yeah, Shush was better, but I think the ceiling for Tessus is maybe just a bit higher. He also plays less supportive roles. So I personally really like Tessus for this fantasy. I just rate him quite highly. I also rate Shush highly, but in terms of stats alone, I think Tessus might be the better pick more often than not. Refresh I'm not even really considering, unfortunately. I think his stats have just not been as good as they were at some stage. They have he has kind of struggled to put up the numbers. We'll have to see how it works out. But I really like Tessus. This is the most basic lineup I can think of. I think top 3 teams with the cheap guy coming from the 3rd best team. There's an Opera on the lineup. There's a supportive guy. There's a headshot machine guy. Roles wise, this works like super well. You just go like, I guess, IGL, Tessus, KD and Op, Perfecto, support, Bit, headshots, and then Zipex as maybe even Noob. Something like that. Maybe not Noob. I'm not really sure. You could also go Rush instead of Zipex though. I personally, I think Rush might just have better stats at this event than Zipex. I think they're both kind of, like, I think Rush has a decent chance of going like he did at Blast, going kind of 1.0 rating. This is pretty tough to Tough to really decide if I should go for Navi or if I should go for Astralis though. This is like the biggest decision in my opinion. The thing is that config blame af. Like, I see a world where Navi kind of struggle, or even a world where the stats are more even across the board than like 227 or 226 grand needs the players to get. Whereas I think Blamaf, if we look at his stats, he's been having pretty decent stats. This is not very good, but like, yeah, he's doing decently for his price. Config, as I said, if Astralis do well, I think Config should do well. It is a gamble with Astralis over Heroic, over Navi. Tough to choose. It's really a bit of a coin flip in my eyes because the individuals I'm picking with Astralis players are just I would say better individually. Whereas if I go for Perfecto and Bit, I think the potential to get wins on your players is higher. And winning, like your players winning, is always so huge. If I go Bit roll wise, it might actually even be better to go for these guys as well. It's a bit of a boring lineup. I go for them. I guess Rush is probably far less popular than Zipex. Also, yeah, I guess I could show this. They no longer show the most picked players here, which is interesting. I don't see the problem with showing the most popular players. I see more of a problem with, like, if we go to event overview, this league, I can just check out everyone's lineup if I want. I can go, if I'm like, let's say, as I'm, for example, 93rd right now in the world in this fall season, if I wanna, for example, be equal with this guy's, make the same lineup as this guy, let's say, I could just go here and check for his lineup. Just go through all of these. Maybe there's a faster way of doing that if I go into the code or whatever on this side. I'm sure I could do something like that. Here I'm not gonna do that, but I think that's a bigger problem, that all the lineups are public before the event starts, than it is to see which players are most popular, because you're probably gonna be able to siphon that some of the Navi players are gonna be most popular, like especially the cheap guys, maybe a bit, maybe an electronic. Probably some of the heroic guys, especially maybe Refresh because he's cheap. Zipex because he's very cheap. These are the kind of players who are probably going to be most popular. I don't think you need to like hide that information from us here. But they've decided to do that. It's not like it's a horrible change that's going to change the game too much. This is also a debate I'm having internally. I mean, it doesn't really make a difference in terms of my like lineup. I can just pick one of the two in between electronic and Bit. It had better blast spring groups, like far better. Electronic, it could be either way. I'm gonna go Astralis. I'm honestly, I'm just gonna go Astralis. I feel like Navi might struggle this event. I'm gonna make the call. Navi is gonna struggle a bit more in this event than these player prices need them or allow them to. How does this work role-wise? Of course. Let's just check. So this is the only easy one. It's not the easiest roles for sure. Probably a support. And a Jot machine actually 47 0.5%. That's pretty good. Is this like a very low sample size of games? We go on to Rush. I think that's from past 6 months. How many games is that? 3 kills. He just hasn't played too much. Yeah, I mean, just the sample size of maps is very low, and that's I guess why these are kind of. I would say support is probably still best on him. And I mean, no one else really likes that. I would go IGL tests like every time. It's probably CT rating here. Entry fragger. Could go entry config possibly. I think CT rating play map is like super easy to go for. Is it headshots or entry? I guess it's headshots. No multi. Defender, multi. Yeah, defender's better. Yeah. Entry, headshots. So headshots should be the best. Makes sense. And oh yeah, I actually haven't realized this, but you can, in EPL, you can put all the boosters at once. Only be putting the boosters for first round. But I guess this is like, if I have a lot of new viewers since I've last done a full booster. I'll put on all the boosters. And you get to kind of, I guess, see how I think about it. So, for example, like look at the pistol, best pistol round, or like there's a couple things. I guess first we can go bottom of scorecard. Who's our worst guy? Rush. Who's he in my eyes gonna do the worst against? I think Heroic. So Rush, bottom of scorecard versus Heroic. Pretty simple stuff. Been used. Okay, so for example, Choke then. I think Choke is gonna be probably Astralis versus Heroic. Could be a potential choke. I think they are a choking team as well a bit. So we can go like Config versus Astralis. I mean, Config versus Heroic. Choke. Also maybe a tighter matchup because it's a Danish like rivalry. Top of scorecard. Return to that. I think Bait. Probably Rush, right? Yeah. Bait is another one where it's good to use against opposition that's usually gonna kill you, right? So we are gonna go with like Astralis. They're like the second best team that EG are gonna play against, according to this. KST you should use against like I'm not gonna use KST and then KST could be either KDN or Tessis. I'll go for Tessis, I guess. Why not? Against the weakest team in the group, which is like Ago. I could change it KDN later. Saver. Yeah, KDN. Blamef had a higher saving percentage. Okay, so I'll go Blamef Saver versus Heroic. This can be against anything. There's a couple you can use kind of against anything. I guess Avenger again would be good against a team that's a bit on the higher side. So I guess Navi could do not against Navi Avenger on config. Clutch. I'm not gonna go Rush. I think Tessa's Clutch again against like a higher tier team like Navi could make sense. Top of scorecard is gonna be Blamef for sure. And with top of scorecard, it's one of these where the percentage to trigger is pretty high. It doesn't really matter if it's against good or bad opposition. So what you want to do is have it against opposition where it's possibly going to go to 3 maps, because then you have a higher chance of having a trigger. Do we have anything against Heroic on him already? Yeah, we have Saver. What about Navi? Yeah, we can go top of scorecard against Navi. it's scary to think that Astralis is gonna do that well against Navi, but it's what I'm kind of gambling on, right? Yeah, he's a good pistol guy. Again, kind of the same thinking that I want to have it against team that can maybe be decent. Like, I think Complexity could go 3 maps against Astralis decently often. So I want to use it against them. Ace is probably Tessus, right? Yeah. Ace, one of these weaker ones. I'll go for that later, actually. What do we have as like the most often triggering ones right now? We have Assist. I'm guessing either Blamaf or Rush. Probably Blamaf, that's a high percentage. Did we have a top of scorecard here? I want to go Assist versus the Complexity makes sense. Headshots probably on, yeah, config. Can be on kind of anything. We have Call, Navi, Pago yet. I don't think EG have a high headshot player. No, I don't think they have anyone who's really good at headshots. Flash. ADN definitely our Flash guy, okay. Flash I would use against like medium tier opposition, and the like thinking here is that like the very top tier opposition is not gonna get flashed that often. They're gonna play anti-flash, they're gonna be able to play around your flashes, whereas the very low tier, like the Argos, might not even need to be flashed to be killed. They're gonna have more dry peaks. So I would want to go against like medium tier. Medium tier to me basically meaning like versus Complexity. A good idea. Maybe against EG. Yeah, so Ace, we'll come back later. Blamaf 30 bomb. Where do we not have one yet? Argo. Against 30 bomb is another one where I would not want to put it against Argo because it might be a complete stomp, right? If they go like 16-5, up to 30 bomb. So 30 bomb, maybe there's an overtime, or maybe the game is a bit closer, but one guy's all the time getting the kills, like Blamaf. So I think that makes sense. Nade kills would be Blamaf as well. I'm not sure if there's even space for anything. Argo. Okay, so this is one where I would maybe rather have it against like medium tier opposition. I don't mind it being like super weak though. I would say nade kills still happen against this tier as well, quite often. Whereas the top tier is not gonna die to nades as often. They're gonna be able to play around the nades. This is on him, this is whatever, and this is whatever. So who is as attack? I would say Ace is again against like the medium tier. Because it's good to have a high amount of rounds against whom you can get the Ace. I think EG makes sense. Knife kill, ADN versus like, I think Navi honestly might be one where KDN is like healing it. I can see him kind of just trying to knife simple or whatever, trying to get under his skin. Whereas the other ones, maybe not that often. Of course, KDN, the knife guy, starting with the knife kill on, I think it was Shiro against Gambit in that clutch. Makes a lot of sense, and this can just be here against Complexity, why not? Whatever. So nice that I was able to show some of my thinking again on the boosters. I think it's an underestimated part of the game to know when to use the boosters, how to use them. I've gotten 40 points here. I'm not sure, like, of course, look, this is just how it could theoretically be. This is always gonna be partly a guessing game. As is fantasy always. You can't know what happens. Like here, look, 25 only. Only 5 of the boosters triggered. Partially because, look, Dupree didn't do as well as I wanted him to. Magis didn't do most of the time as good as I wanted him to. So when these players don't do as well as they should, or as poorly as they should at times, with, like, for example, bottom of the scorecard, this can happen where you just don't have your boosters trigger. But I'm kind of like, I always want to think that my lineup is good and they're gonna do the things I expect them to do, and then the boosters are gonna trigger. At least most of them are gonna trigger under these circumstances. Either way, thank you guys for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.